Hi, welcome to the podcast, Why Are You Sober? I'm your host, Sam, and I'm so glad that you're here. This podcast is a place where sober addicts come to share their stories, spread some experience, strength, and hope, and share about why they continue to choose sobriety today. If you are a sober addict and you would like to come on and tell your story, I would love that. You can get in touch with me at my website, which is whyareyousober.org, or my email, which is sam@whyareyousober.org. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the socials. And even if you aren't a sober addict, but you're somebody who has questions and is looking for a little bit of help, you can also please get in touch with me. I would totally love that. So last week, we heard from my friend Robinson, who I really hope you enjoyed his story. It's so funny because a lot of people always tell me that after they've told their story, they feel like it was very scattered. But I don't see that after the case. They always seem to tell their story really well. I just feel like it's more that they don't share their story often. But yes, I loved having him here, and I loved all the thoughts and comments that people gave me regarding his story. So this week, we have the wonderful pleasure of having a dear friend of mine, Melissa, come on the podcast. Melissa comes from my very first home group and sobriety group down in Tampa. She has an amazing story, but there's a piece of her story that I don't believe she is aware of that we share. So Melissa and I went to our friend Allison's wedding back in October of 2017. Allison was our friend, as some people know, from our home group, and we were the only two people that she had invited to the wedding. So Melissa and I were going to go together. It was so fun. So we planned it, and Allison's wedding was going to be down in Ybor, which, if you remember, Ybor was where I got my DUI, and it was going to be pretty much just like over a year from the date of when I got arrested was Allison's wedding. So, and I hadn't been to Ybor since I'd been arrested. So this is the part that Melissa doesn't know. Before the wedding, I actually got to Ybor pretty early. The night I was arrested, I had a free drink token still in my car. So the bar that I had finished all of my drinking at was giving out free drink tokens. So you bought a drink and you got a free drink token. So I guess what a terrible alcoholic I was. I still had one when I left. And it ended up sitting in my car for the entire first year of my sobriety. It sat in the car in a cup holder, and I would see it every day. And it would remind me of what I'd done and where I'd been and why I didn't want to be there ever again. So here comes Allison's wedding, and I'm coming to meet Melissa, and I show up early, and I take that drink token out of my car, and I walk past the bar that was not open yet, and I put the drink token down in front of the door, and I walked away. I've heard some people who have been like, oh, you gave somebody else a free drink. Yep, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I just gave it back to the bar. Maybe the people who opened it up took it and brought it in just to give away again. But I realized I didn't need that totem in my life anymore. I knew why I was sober by then, and I didn't need to hold on to that drink token anymore. So I'm just grateful that I then got to just go hang out with Melissa and Allison and celebrate Allison's wonderful wedding. So with that, I hope that you all enjoy Allison's story, or not Allison. I hope you all enjoy Melissa's story. Allison's story is coming up soon. But with that, I will send us off with the serenity prayer. Good and gracious friend, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Yeah, here we go. Okay, Melissa. Well, thank you for doing the podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. So, the really starter question is, what is your addiction and when did it start?
Hi. So thank you so much for inviting me. I live for a podcast.
Yay.
For me, it would be alcohol. And I had my first drink at 14 years old. But I don't think that I really started having those kinds of consequences until maybe the year after. And I mean, consequences that I didn't recognize, but definitely consequences that occurred, meaning like not being able to continue in AP history because I couldn't wake up for that class, because I was
Mm-hmm.
hungover on certain days. Um, which looking back on it now at 43, I can obviously identify that that was a direct reflection of drinking. But at the time, I had no idea.
Yeah. So you would say that that was when your alcoholism began.
Correct. And I know that there's a lot of people that have a lot of other um, fun drugs in their story, but I really don't, except for marijuana, which I was very heavy into for many, many years, and then stopped actually a few years before I stopped drinking.
Oh wow. Yeah. I mean I'm very similar. My real only addiction has been alcohol. And not that I didn't try other drugs in my life, but I don't know why, but for some reason they didn't hit as much as alcohol did for me. I don't know why, but
For sure. Well, I can tell you why I never really wanted to try anything heavy. And that's because I have a family member um, who, who got HIV because of intravenous drug use in the
mm,
80s.
mm,
So that was always kind of um, a big warning sign, like do not, And then I've tried cocaine a few times, but the real reason that I didn't want to keep that up was because I really, really enjoyed it. And I know it's funny, but I'm from New York City and the good Coke is super expensive. And I knew that I'd never be able to afford that good stuff that I enjoyed. And I would end up getting some horribly cut trash that would make me feel worse. So I just decided that that wasn't for me.
yeah, wow.
Which is weird to hear someone say, I like this, so I didn't do
Yeah,
it.
especially an addict. I mean, because usually,
Yeah,
usually we are like, if we like it, we want not just more, we want all of it. We want all of it. Like,
exactly.
give me
But
all of it.
but I think that's why I really identify more as an alcoholic because that I couldn't stop. That's the one thing that, I feel like I was, whenever I drink or drank, I flip on like an on switch. And then, if you go to flip it off, joke's on me because it's just another on. And, I would pretty much just be unable to stop drinking until I threw up or I passed out. And that was like my pattern for so long. But everything else, I could just stop. Whether or not I enjoyed stopping, like I never enjoyed stopping smoking weed, but I could, you know what I mean? Drinking, though, when I stopped drinking, it just had all of these like mental repercussions
Oh,
and things like that.
oh yeah. I mean, that has been very similar to my experiences with marijuana as well. Of like where I could easily just stop it. Like I didn't, if I ran out, it was like okay. Like I wasn't like when I ran out of alcohol, it was like the end of the world, and I had to get more immediately. But like
Exactly.
with marijuana, it was like okay, whatever, and I just go to bed. Like it didn't, yeah, it's just weird. I don't
For
understand.
sure.
Like
Yeah.
it's so weird because I keep talking about with people like I don't understand addiction because like I have another friend who she her addiction was narcotics and she beat it and she can like go to just vineyards and go to like wine tastings and stuff with her husband and she can like totally function and it's fine. And but she
And she
like
can drink.
yeah, she can do
Wild.
yeah. I know. And I've seen her like walk away from stuff and I'm just like that that is wild to me. Like how does that addiction work, you know?
I can honestly say that I don't try to figure it out. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that it's awesome that she's gotten her life back that way and that she can go on and like enjoy those things. I think that's awesome.
Oh yeah. I
And
mean, I work with this woman every day, so I know it's sincere and real. And that's, it's like and that's the thing is I have to go, congratulations to you. Like that's awesome that you can
is
do that you can live life this way, you know? So
so what rating is this podcast? Is this like a family friendly podcast or
no,
can I
it's
use this
definitely not
where
yeah,
I
it's
was going to
definitely
say, because
yeah.
that is like really badass, but
Yeah.
that's something that I know I can't do. So you don't live under a rock. So you've heard of CBD, right?
Yeah.
I well, I've been in treatment for anxiety for forever and I thought, oh, let me try this natural remedy and like, oh, you can vape it. And I was vaping at that point in my life. And I vape CBD, and I 100% know. So anyone listening out there, you know what I mean? Like I'm college educated. I have a master's in science. Like I know things. Um,
Yeah.
like I know that there's no THC and that there's absolutely no way that I could get high the way that I did when I smoked weed. But the taste of it in my mouth was like, oh, all bets are off. I was like, this is not for me. So I just happily put
Yeah.
it down because here's the thing, right? I know I'm not addicted to weed. Like that's not the issue that I've had, but I know myself. And weed makes me thirsty, right? We all know about cotton mouth. So the problem is if I'm already smoking, I might as well be drinking. And that's the reason that I don't play around with it.
There you go.
Because I know myself, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there will absolutely be no good that comes of me drinking again. Like I can kiss my relationship goodbye with my family, with my friends, with my boyfriend, with my school that I work at, with my students, because I just wouldn't be able to present my best self to them. And that's the best self that they deserve to have and that I deserve to be. So
Amen.
I
Amen.
don't, I don't, I don't play with it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, I'm going to the Bahamas in a couple of days. And I know, like, I'm going to totes have a virgin, pina colada, but no one ever drank a pina colada to get faded. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I drank for the effect. Give me some Four Loco and some shots. I wasn't out there being like, I'm gonna have $9 pina coladas all night. Like that's what you have for fun.
Yeah,
So
exactly. No. Yeah. I was always like, just vodka, please. No, just vodka. Like that's it.
yeah.
So you say your addiction started around 14, 15. Where did it take you? And like how long did you were you an active addict, and when did you get sober?
Okay, so I definitely I'm like I said, I'm 14 at this point. So I had my first drunk at a quinceañera, which is a sweet 15 for those who are non-Spanish speakers. And I was off to the races, but within moderation, because remember, I'm 14 years old. So it's not like I can just go to the store, or go to the bar. So I kind of became an opportunist and drank when I could or started hanging out with people who had more access. And I remember being like 15 and clearing out my mom's liquor cabinet. Um, but with all of that being said, I still had straight A's. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all of the things that you would say, like, oh, she's hanging out with the wrong crowd. Well, it was the right crowd for me. That's who I wanted to be with. My first like real issue was when I was a freshman in college. I drank my way out of school.
Mm.
And bingo, right. So I didn't get a chance to complete college when my peers did. So I had to figure out how to make up for school. And so I kind of decided to take an easy job, which was being a teacher's assistant back in New York, where I was making, hardly, I was making pennies, but it paid for my health insurance and I was able to like afford to live with 100 roommates and drink. And so that was, early, I want to say I was like maybe 19 at that point when I came back home. And the thing about that is like when you're at 19, you go to the bodega and they don't really card you. They're like whatever. But at 14 when I started, I couldn't do that. So where I ended up is really funny because a lot of people have this idea, and I did too. So if you're listening, look out. I thought that alcoholics like live under the bridge or like they lost everything and they lost their jobs and they lost their homes and all of that. And they had like those dire consequences. And for me, I was what they call a high bottom drunk. I graduated summa cum laude with my bachelor's and my master's degree. I was teaching. I had my own nice apartment with like crown molding and hardwood floors. And my view was the Empire State Building. And on paper, I was doing great. But I think what really led me to get sober, and this was in March of 2015. Like my sobriety date is March 3rd, 2015. So I'm
Wow.
rounding out 8 years. And I just felt this emptiness inside of me and this bottom. And I woke up in like this horrific hangover. And I used to pride myself in like being able to puke in the toilet and everything. And there was just like vomit and bile all over my apartment. I just woke up in disarray and everything was
Oh
where it
man.
shouldn't be. And it was like, when you're a binge drinker like I am, and a full-time alcoholic and a full-time teacher and a full-time college student and blah, 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 you kind of compartmentalize, but this was just me being out of control. And I was talking to my friends and they couldn't tell me if I was in a cab or if they took the train with me.
Oh
And,
gosh. Yeah.
and being a single woman in New York, like that's super dangerous. So I decided to figure out what it was that needed to change, because I felt not just that physical effect, but I just felt beaten emotionally and mentally. Like I didn't
Mm.
want to live anymore and I didn't know what to do, and I had like this epiphany for like 1 second, and sometimes that spark is all you need. And I just felt like maybe you should stop drinking. Like maybe this shouldn't be like, oh, I'll just make sure I have a heavy dinner before I go out, or drink pints of water in between. Like for a moment,
Yeah.
like I had this flash of wisdom that was like, girl, it was like Whoopi in like Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. It was like, Molly, you in danger, girl. And like that's exactly that's exactly what it was. And I was like, I can't keep living this way. So that prompted me to not go to Alcoholics Anonymous or any other 12-step program. It didn't cause me to go to rehab. It didn't cause me to do anything the way that most people would seek help, right? I didn't even tell my therapist who I was seeing at the time. I decided to go on Facebook and just blow it up and say, hey, does
Oh my
anybody know
gosh.
how to stop drinking? Because, that's what you do in
Yeah.
2015. And one of my friends who stopped, cold turkey the way that I wanted to reached out. And, I spent the next 52 days just really in misery. And it wasn't until one of my very best friends reached out, and he saw how miserable I was and how suicidal I was, because the problems of my life were still there. I just didn't have my happy solution to numb my feelings.
Yeah, and you weren't,
Um
and so you weren't sober, you were just dry.
I was so dry and I
Yeah.
was the worst person to be around. Um he kind of pulled me to the side, and I was with him in his office and saying goodbye, because at this point I was going to move to Tampa, and he just read me the riot act and like started crying and told me that he
Wow.
was really afraid that the next time he saw me would be in my grave,
Oh my
because
goodness.
would be at my cemetery, because he knows like I've had multiple suicide attempts, and not adorable cry for helps, like landing in the mental institution for a while. And he really just kind of told me like, you can't keep doing this without a network of people. Like you can't keep doing this without help, because the problem is you don't know how to live without drinking, and you're putting yourself through torture. And you know your solution. You know what your solution is going to be because you've tried it before. And I don't want to
Mm.
watch one of my best friends go out that way.
Wow, what a
And
gift. What a
yeah,
gift. I
yeah,
mean,
most people don't get that conversation.
do you look back on that and just go like, thank you?
Oh, I constantly tell him that he is the person that saved my life.
That's incredible.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Like he knows, I don't know about spirituality and metaphysical things, but I feel like if there was ever a moment where an angel embodied a person, that was it for me.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that was the God moment where somebody just told me like they loved me, and that they know what's going to happen because they know how I am, and that it's noble that I'm trying not to drink, but like I need a solution that isn't more damaging to me,
Yeah.
which me living without, any kind of help was. I was just miserable. And it's funny because I look back on it now where, I have this cool network of homegirls and friends, and like we socialize, but like those 52 days I would come home from work and like put myself to bed at like 5:30 because I couldn't be awake. Like what is there to do when you're not drinking?
What's the
And so like
point?
yeah, I would pack, um, because for my move, and then I was like hiding, I was hiding from the world, and my local bar was on the corner, so I'd get out of the subway and that would be my bar. And I had to reroute my way and walk a few blocks away to take a bus, like two stops, because I knew that I had no way of walking past the bar without drinking
Mm,
in it.
mm,
And like I rerouted my entire life to not drink, but I was so miserable and so unhappy. And I was really close to death, and my friend kind of pulled me out of it. And so I made a deal with them that I would let other people know that I was suffering this way. And that's what led me to actual sobriety and actual recovery.
yeah. Which is
So
awesome.
that was like the turning point for me.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I thank you so much. Like that's an amazing story, but that is so wonderful that you had that person in your life who did that. Who
Oh,
just
can
stepped
I
in.
can I circle back
Yeah,
and
sure.
and
Of
say
course.
something that I don't normally tell people?
Yeah.
So the job that I had, right, I was teaching, and we had a book club, and we started reading this book. Um, Gosh, I wish I could remember. I'm sure that it'll come to me and I'll text it to you. Um,
Okay. Okay.
sorry, audience. But this girl was drinking, and blacking out and trying to. It's actually they made a movie out of it. And it was just really difficult for her. But she, all of the ways that she was, blacking out and figuring out things that happened were very similar to myself.
Ooh.
And that's kind of like the first slap in the face that like maybe I need to really look at the way that I'm drinking. And that happened to me maybe about 2 or 3 weeks before my last drunk, where I was like I gotta stop. But that was like the hint of me kind of coming out of this fog of what is 20 years of drinking, because I got sober at 35.
Yeah.
um so it was definitely like me starting to really look at it because I read this book.
Yeah.
I think it's Girl on the Train. It's called Girl on the Train.
Girl on the
um
train. Okay.
yeah. And so it's like following this alcoholic, and just so much of the way that she was processing things mentally and trying to like recover bits and pieces from blackouts was how I was living.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was, if you saw me in pictures, like I was having the best time. If you asked me about it, no idea. And I traveled the world this way, and
Yeah.
so it's like I would say that I lived vicariously through the memories of others and through the photographs of others, because that's how I would piece together that I had a good time or not. And I couldn't really tell you if I did. So, yeah, I
Mm.
just wanted to make sure that I added that, because that was like, I don't know, I feel like that's when I started to turn the corner into starting to think about maybe like if this chick's a real alcoholic, like, and I'm feeling bad for her in the book, but then I'm going through the same shit, like maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
And then that, in a few weeks I had that moment where it was like, girl, you better stop, like you better fall back and not do this. But I didn't know how.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was, I actually like said to a couple people in my life, like, I think I'm an alcoholic. And
Mm.
And they, of course, were like, "No, you're not. Like, you just like overdrank. You're fine." Especially one of those people was my husband at the time, my ex-husband. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I know, I totally believe it was fear out of like not being able to drink himself, like if that was true.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I can't. I'm not going to put words in his mouth or whatever. But then the other thing was that I actually had a morning where I woke up after having drank a lot the night before and um, got in my car and suddenly saw a full Wendy's large soda. And I looked and I was like, what the hell? And then I realized that there's a empty bag of French fries. And I was like, oh my God, I drove to Wendy's last night and I could not remember it at all. And
That's wild, right?
yeah, and it's terrifying. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell? And I actually did end up going to an AA meeting after that, but I never said I was an alcoholic and I did not pick up a white chip. And and so then, then the rest of my story goes like, and then I got a DUI and blah blah blah. So and I ended up at the 301 house and blah blah blah. So like, yeah, I love hearing those insights of, because I feel like most sober addicts have had those moments where they were questioning like themselves, like, am I an addict? Like,
Oh, I've
you
I've
know?
definitely had moments where like I was out of town visiting friends and it'd be like 9:30 in the morning and I'm cracking open a 40 because I'm on vacation. And they're like, wow, isn't that like, kind of an early start? And I'm like, yeah, but you said that you were going to party. So where's yours? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, I thought they
Yeah.
see me rolling, they hate it. And like, come on, like, we riding dirty tonight. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why other people didn't drink the way that I did, or like how people knew how to go out and drink without throwing up or waking up hungover. Like it never occurred to me that that's just not normal. I just thought that that's how people drank.
Exactly. Exactly. I know. I was like, doesn't everybody? Why doesn't it? Everybody doesn't drink
Yeah.
this way? What?
That's why when I started reading that and it's like, oh, well, she's obviously an alcoholic. That's how she's being written. And then I started to self-identify those blackouts and those, regretful moments of like blowing up. And I was just like, oh my God, this is really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
really uncomfortable. And it's like I started to kind of think like maybe I need to like slow down or something, or maybe, but of course I didn't because I'm, an alcoholic. And so that thought and that kind of identification or realization flew out the window as soon as it came in. But that was the first time I want to say that I really had a moment of like, maybe this is a problem. And I know that a lot of people who do do find recovery or stop drinking or whatever, because nobody has a monopoly on how somebody stops doing something,
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
believe anyway. I feel like a lot of people can say like, oh, I've had these moments where I've tried and blah blah, and it's like I don't really, I never really wanted to stop, you know what I mean, until I stopped. Um it was never really a thought to me, like, because honestly, like who wants to stop drinking, like who wants to like,
Yeah.
who wants to, I didn't. So
Yeah.
that was like my moments.
Yeah. So, so it's about 20 years that you were active as an addict. And then what were things that helped you get sober?
Well, I I won't say which one, but like I was up, and continued to be a part of a 12-step program.
Yep. Awesome. And so then, Melissa, then why, well, I mean, amongst that, like what were things of that program or whatever that helped you get sober? Like what were things that really encouraged you or just helped you maintain a clear head through your trials, through getting sober?
I think the main thing, like in the beginning, was people that looked like me, that were like tattooed and, and successful and punk rock and still sober.
Mm-hmm.
There were, people that were doctors and nurses, and there were also people who were like homeless in my first home group in New York. And so, there's a saying, right? Park Avenue to Park Bench. And so that was what I saw. And I realized like, oh, anybody can have this thing, and
Yeah.
anybody who works at this can beat this thing. And that to me was like very hopeful. Really reading a lot of the literature and sponsorship fellowship, which means like, I worked the steps with another woman, and the fellowship of like, people inviting me out, outside of my drinking friends. I didn't have people like invite me to places, because I was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't the first person on people's list to like go to a wedding. Like that just wasn't a thing. Um, so these people inviting me out to dinner and like really taking an investment in me, like, was humongous. And part of the program as well, like service, giving back. I remember thinking like I have absolutely nothing to offer anyone. Like I'm completely worthless. And I've had a lot of self-hate, and being able to be of service to others, like starting with cleaning ashtrays and the toilet and like reading a paragraph to sell people literature. That changed my perspective and my life because I
Mm,
finally felt like I had some value.
mm,
And that was a real turning point to me. And so when I moved to Florida, I searched that 12-step program again, and I had kind of found a meeting to join before I moved. And that's like what I just did. I really dove in headfirst to like service and working with another person in recovery, and being just as open as possible to this change, because I didn't want to live in pain, and I also didn't want to kill myself. And so if I don't want to live in pain anymore and I don't want to end it, I need a third option. And
amen.
that third option is for me was finding recovery. And so that's what I did, and I continue to do that.
You're awesome. That's awesome. It is. You are awesome. And I love that we met in
Thanks.
recovery together and that that's how we know each other. It's so
Yeah, for
wonderful.
sure. Yeah,
And
it's a real gift, and there's people, like yourself that I got to see come in and grow
mm,
and watch their life change and blossom and like go through the pains and joys of life. Like I ran to that clubhouse that
yes.
we both were a part of the day that my grandmother died.
Amen.
I left work and went in there and just raised my hand at a meeting I've never been to, and just bawled and said, like, I just don't, like, I just found out and I don't know how to process this loss right now. So I just need you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going to drink, but I just need to cry about it. And they let me, you know
Oh,
what I mean?
oh
Like there
yeah.
wasn't,
Oh,
you
100%.
know,
I share with people. I said a year after I got sober, my husband at the time asked me for a divorce, and I was like shocked because I was like I thought everything was better. And
mm-hmm.
I said, and after a long night of talking, I like agreed. I said, okay, then, well, this is fine. And first thing I did the next day, went to a meeting and opened my mouth and went, this just happened to me. And I don't know what to do. And
Yeah. And
it's amazing to have that community of people to go to and just say like this is what's happening and not be judged and not be looked down upon and just be like okay man like that happened to me and I can help you through it or just talk and listen to you, you know.
that to me is tremendous because right, I've never been married, so I've never been divorced, but I've had family members die, but somebody else in the room has also had someone die. Like somebody
Yeah.
else in the room has also gone through a divorce, and so they can help you. And so I've come to realize like I can go through anything and not have to drink.
And
There's
yes,
people that are put in my life, and because I would drink for the victories
yeah,
too.
me too, I know. But the amazing thing was also at that community that we were at, um the person who came up to me was also had been in a same-sex marriage. And so it wasn't just that like I was getting divorced, but the person who talked to me also was like, "Hey, I'm gay and this has happened to me." And it was like so it was even more personal, you know?
Oh
Like
yeah,
it
and I
like the level that it can get to in those rooms when you are in need of something is astronomical how you can
mhm.
get the right person that is right there at the right moment. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and like you talking about that as well, like it's so important that it doesn't matter who you are or what you do. It's a safe space for queer people,
Yes.
it's a safe space
Yes.
for Black people. I myself am Latina, so it's a safe space for people of color. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we're all suffering with this common thing. Like we
Well,
can't stop,
as
we
you
can't
said
stop doing
before,
this. So,
yeah, as you said before, it's Park Street to Park Bench. I mean, you know, it's everybody,
uh-huh.
and it doesn't matter. So the point of the podcast, and here's the last question. So
Oh,
why are you sober? What keeps you sober today? Why?
oof. It's funny because I knew that this was going to be the question, and I know that this is the name of the podcast. And so I was trying to think of like this really good answer for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, knock it out with a bang. But I find myself hearing this question and getting kind of emotional. And I think that The reason that I stay sober is because I deserve to. I deserve to live the life that I have. I deserve to not throw everything that I've worked for away. I deserve to be healthy and happy to the best of my ability. And I deserve to be the girlfriend and the daughter and the coworker and the teacher and the partner and everything else that life is throwing at me. I deserve to be able to show up 100%. And that's strong for me because I never believed that I deserve sobriety. When I saw those gifts happening to people, I thought that wasn't for me. Like all I would get was not drinking and I would still be unhappy. And it wasn't, I had this turn of corner, and I feel like I just really deserve the gifts of living a sober life.
Amen. I love it.
Thank you.
That was
Thanks.
a great answer. And thank you so much, Melissa.
It is my absolute pleasure. And I do want to say one last thing to anybody, if I can, to the podcast. If you've tried to stop drinking or smoking crack or whatever your flavor is, you are always worth another chance. If you tried 100 times, you deserve 101. And I think it's really important for people to know that you are absolutely worth it. You deserve the best version of your life and of yourself. And it doesn't matter how many times you've been unable to stop. You always deserve another chance. And there should always be someone in your life that lets you know. So if you don't have that person, let me be that person. You absolutely deserve to live.
Amen. Well, thank you for listening to Melissa's story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking with her. She is such a dear friend of mine and such an amazing woman. I'm so glad that she came on to share her story with us. So next week is actually a very big honor because we're going to have my friend Amanda on. And Amanda was the leader of the very first meeting that I ever went to on my sobriety journey. So I'm so pleased and honored that she has agreed to be here with us. So come back next week for that. And as always, thank you for listening to the podcast. Please follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. And if you are a sober addict and would like to come on and tell your story, I would love that. Or if you have just questions or are looking for some help, please reach out too. You can find me at my website, whyareyousober.org, or email me at sam@whyareyousober.org. You can also find me on social media like Facebook and Instagram. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful week. And until next time, I'm wishing you all peace, love, and a whole lot of joy.